Celebrity, true or false?
You can't handle the truth.
See, we have window dressing and production value for you right there, Martin Kove. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I know you're blown away. First things first up. True or false, Martin Kove? You were encouraged to stay in acting by none other than Sean Connery, who later became tennis buddies with you. Is that true or false?
It's true.
Okay. What were you on the fence? And Sean, how did you come across Sean Connery?
Sean Connery, I was his stand-in in 1972 when I was still acting in New York for a movie called The Anderson Tapes. And it was like a glorified extra. You just stand there, you listen to Sidney Lumet direct, you watch, you watch Sean interact with Martin Balsam and all these other people. And I learned one thing. I learned how to listen by watching Sean Connery. Then probably 15 years later, I've done Karate Kid. I'm a little more established, and I bump into him on a tennis court. And I say, "You want to hit the ball?" And I said to him, "Do you remember me? I was your stand-in." He says, "Nope." He said, "Nope." He said, "But do you want to hit the ball?" And I said, "Sure." And we're hitting the ball, and he was terrible. He wasn't hitting well. He had a back problem.
Oh, boy.
And he was cursing. But he was cursing, which I can't say here on the show. But he was cursing so much like we do as teenagers, and I'm cracking up hysterical because I'm saying on the other side of the court, I'm playing tennis with James Bond, and he's cursing just like I do, And I'm dying. I couldn't hit the ball back either because I was laughing so hard. And then we became friends, And so what they're referring to is I asked him, because I was accepted to a classical repertory company, and I was accepted also to the NYU School of the Arts at the same time. And it would have been the 5th year of college. And I said, I posed the question, do I go back to school or do this? And he said, "Young man, if you can do Antigone, you can do anything," which means go work with the repertory company and forget about school. And I did.
And you did that.
I did that.
And so after the Anderson tapes, you started getting some gigs here in town with the Rockford Files, right? You were on the Rockford Files?
That was in New York.
Okay.
I was there, and I came here, and I guess in the first year I was here, I got a lot of those guest stars, like in the Rockford Files, like 8 TV shows and 3 movies.
Because you told a story off camera here. You knew James Garner off set, right?
Yeah.
And did you go to a sporting event with him or something like that?
We went to, we had the same orthopedic doctor, Robert Rosenfeld, who ran with the Raiders.
Okay.
And he took us to all the games, and we went on the field and with the passes and heard all the hits and the bangs.
Up in Oakland you're talking about?
Yeah,
or
both.
Here? Okay.
Oakland and
L.A.?
And L.A. They played in L.A. a couple of times. Then they were still the Oakland Raiders.
Right.
And it was fantastic. I mean, as a New Yorker, I didn't root for the Giants or the Jets, so this was my first experience, and I loved it. And I was a soccer goalie because I wanted to play football, but none of the schools had football teams that I went to. So ultimately, I just lived vicariously through these players.
What's it like going to a football game with James Garner? What was that like? He must have been like a rock star.
He's a lot of fun. I mean, but I love James Garner in Maverick.
Yes, sure.
I was, that was the period of time where there were 35 Westerns on primetime TV in the 60s. And Maverick was my favorite.
Sure.
And we talked about it, and we talked about the Americanization of Emily. We talked about we talked about The Great Escape.
What a great movie that is.
I mean, we talked about great films, and that's the greatest thing working with, like when I worked with James Coburn, it was his last movie, and I just talked about Magnificent Seven, and I just talked about also The Great Escape with him, and, an iconic actor. And I just have a good time, and even with Charles Bronson, we talked about so much. Charles Bronson surprised me. His favorite show was Cagney and Lacey.
I don't mean to laugh, but
I laughed. I was in a.
Was he a Sharon Gless fan? Is that what you're talking about?
I was at Sharon Gless Tyne Daly.
Yes, of course.
I'm at an event. After doing what did I do? White Buffalo, 1976.
Yes.
Then I didn't see him till 1989.
Yeah.
I'm at a black tie event. I walk up to him and I say, "Hey, Charlie, you remember me from the White Buffalo?" And he says, "Oh yeah, you're still doing that series with them girls." And I say, "You watch Cagney and Lacey?" And Charlie says, my favorite show.
Go figure.
Go figure.
Go figure. Martin Kove here, Celebrity True or False, rolling on. All right, let's get to some Karate Kid questions. Your role of John Kreese, true or false? Others considered for it: Kurt Russell, Jeff Bridges, Harvey Keitel, Leonard Nimoy, and Christopher Walken. Is that true?
No.
That's not true.
No. I mean,
okay.
That might have been true behind doors that I never knew. The actors I knew, you know, they were contemplating Toshiro Mifune. They were contemplating Chuck Norris. Toshiro Mifune, they were thinking about him for Miyagi, but he also could have been the teacher. But his whole group didn't speak enough English. He had a massive entourage, and John Avildsen told me the story. But he didn't speak English well enough either to play Kreese or Miyagi. But none of those other actors were mentioned. I think it was John Glover was mentioned.
But Chuck Norris?
Chuck Norris, considered? Yeah. Oh, yeah, Chuck Norris.
Man.
Yeah, it would have been interesting.
It would have been definitely interesting, but obviously you were John Kreese, man. You still are today.
I don't know. You know, it's just, it was pretty crazy because I never thought of that character as being any more than another heavy. It was a couple of weeks' work, and none of us liked even the title. That was one of the questions here, and let's get into that. True or false? Now, you just said it's true. The cast universally hated the Karate Kid's film title. You hated it? They felt like it was like a Bruce Lee movie, and but nothing wrong with the Bruce Lee movie. Sure, I mean, I love Enter the Dragon.
Sure,
but the bottom line is, we weren't like that. This was nobody expected the success of this film. You look at Casablanca, you look at Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, you see it once, bam. You look at the dailies, you know what you're getting. It's going to be terrific. No one really knew, and I would hear the story from Jerry Weintraub and John until they went to the screening. I think it was in Westwood, and they went to a screening, and everybody went wild at the end of the movie, and you get chills.
Yeah.
Ralph and I once were at a convention, and we watched the end of the movie from behind the screen, and 2,000 people were in front. So we watched the ending, and we still got chills. This is a year ago,
Really?
Yeah. And because it's one of those movies, it's a phenomenon. It means, and I have this discussion with Robert Kamen, the writer. He thinks the success is based on Ralph's chemistry with Miyagi. To me, the success of that film is the writing, just like Cobra Kai. Wax on, wax off, no mercy, sweep the leg, mercies for the weak, the force be with you, play it again, Sam. These lines come from great literature that were good scripts and made terrific movies.